My name is Amanda Carter, a 30-year-old marketing specialist. I've helped numerous small businesses establish their brands. After wrapping up my work at my modest one-bedroom apartment, I shut my laptop. As the screen dimmed, I felt my shoulders relax. The skyline outside wasn't flashy, but my time here was my greatest treasure. The plants by the window glowed in the soft evening light. "Amanda, great job working late again, huh?" my husband said, handing me a warm cup of tea. The familiar scent of green tea calmed me. "Thanks, Thomas," I smiled. I met my husband 4 years ago. We had been introduced through a mutual contact at my previous job. He had been raised by a single mother, which reminded me of my own parents' struggles running a small business. My family's electronics shop had been through rough times, yet my parents' hard work kept it afloat. My mom is incredibly strong. Thomas's soft-spoken nature and the importance he placed on family deeply resonated with me. His face lit up whenever he spoke of his mother, as if he'd spent his life in partnership with her. By age 10, he was already helping out at his mom's shop. He spoke of it with a pride that was impossible to ignore. During our year of dating, Thomas was always respectful and admired my work. "Your work is impressive, Amanda. Even after marriage, keep doing what you're best at," he often said, asking me questions about my work with genuine curiosity. "Someday, I want to establish my own real estate business, to be a man who can fully support you." His proposal, filled with dreams of starting his own company, was sincere, so I agreed without hesitation. "Amanda, thank you so much for taking care of my son." When I first visited my future mother-in-law's apartment, she bowed deeply, which made me feel a bit awkward. I stopped her mid-sentence. She had raised Thomas alone, running a small deli shop from a rented space in the city. Her struggles were evident in her worn but dignified manner. After our marriage, I discussed my work situation with my supervisor. With his encouragement, I chose to become a freelancer. "Amanda, freelancing is a perfect fit for you. You're more than capable of succeeding." Just as he predicted, my income remained stable, even increasing. My work expanded to include helping traditional businesses transition to digital and crafting e-commerce strategies for regional producers. Every "thank you, Miss Carter" from a client boosted my confidence. On weekends, I frequently visited Grace. She would always pack homemade deli boxes for me to take home. "Amanda, today I made your favorite stew." Her joy in making these small gestures of care warmed my heart. Amanda is so dedicated to her work. I need to follow her example. Her words of praise made me feel a mix of embarrassment and warmth. Thomas's company also benefited from my connections and got off to a strong start. Although he was a newcomer in real estate, his genuine approach built trust, and business relationships grew steadily. "It's all thanks to you, Amanda. It's your sincerity that's made it possible." Our weekly family dinners, the three of us, became my favorite time. Thomas always cared about his mom's health, and Grace spoke proudly about his future. Their conversations filled me with joy. Thomas's homemade soup had a gentle flavor that reminded me of his mother's cooking. "Mom, you look tired lately. Maybe it's time to close the shop and live with us," Thomas suggested one day. His comment filled the dining room with a warm but solemn air. Grace's eyes welled up slightly. Looking back, I realized that single comment might have changed our lives forever. The bond we built as a family of 3 seemed poised to move forward into something new. For months after our marriage, Thomas's demeanor started to change. "How do I look?" he asked, slipping on a new blue suit. The suit fit him well, but when I saw the price tag, I gasped. "This is $4,000. I have more client meetings now, so appearances matter. Besides, it makes Mom happy." Initially, I tried to support his enthusiasm for his fledgling business, but luxury bags and watches began accumulating. My unease grew. His shopping trips to designer stores didn't stop. His purchases resembled a checklist for successful people. Sales were steady, but we weren't nearly as financially stable as it seemed. "Amanda, you're not going to believe this." He burst into the living room one day with excitement. "We might be able to get a luxury apartment in New York for a steal." I was speechless. A luxury tower in the heart of New York. Can we afford that with the business as it is? When I told Mom, she was thrilled. Amanda, just trust me. I'll take care of you both. But beneath his determined expression, I saw traces of desperation. A luxury apartment? You should be cautious about that decision, my supervisor said, his voice filled with clear concern. Still, Thomas's pained look stayed with me. Knowing his deep sense of family, I couldn't fully deny his wish. When the keys to the apartment were finally in our hands, Grace's eyes sparkled with tears. Oh, I can't believe my son is giving me a home like this. With me here, Amanda, you can focus on your work. Faced with their determination, I gave in. Besides, Thomas's business seemed stable. At least I wanted to believe so. For the first week, our new life was idyllic. Mornings began with sunrises over the bay, and evenings were filled with dazzling city views. Grace's cooking made every dinner special, but those peaceful days didn't last long. One afternoon, during a virtual meeting with a major client, a loud vacuum noise filled the room. Grace, please, I'm in a meeting. Oh, I can't even clean the house? Is that computer work really making any money? The noise continued. Trying to salvage the meeting, I apologized to the clients and moved to another room. But Grace's voice followed me. My son's wife can't even manage household chores. I'm the one doing everything. But my work supports this family. With a tone that was all too theatrical, she raised her voice. What a burden to our family's name. While the meeting wrapped up successfully, I knew I couldn't handle such constant interruptions. I attempted to apologize at dinner. Grace is right, Amanda. Your work's just a hobby, Thomas said. His words sent a chill through me. I tried to hope that one day he'd understand, but things only got worse. The next morning, my pricey skincare products were diluted. My favorite white blouse had turned pink in the wash. Oh, sorry. It must have been with my red scarf, Grace said, barely hiding her smirk. My food portions grew smaller each day. You look better. Slimmer. Every meeting brought the hum of a vacuum. My cosmetics disappeared, my clothes were stained, and my meals dwindled. You should be grateful, Amanda. She's handling all the chores for you, Thomas added. His words left me numb. The husband I'd known now zipped around in a luxury car and rented a city office. He seemed like a stranger. The nightscape outside the apartment was just as beautiful as before, but it felt cold and distant now. One evening, exhausted, I stepped off the subway. Leaning against the escalator rail, I wanted to share my success with Thomas. I had just won a major project for my client. A proposal had been accepted for a $5 million campaign. If things continued like this, I could help stabilize Thomas's business. Filled with hope, I headed home to the tower apartment. On the subway, I glanced at my reflection in the window. My makeup had faded, and my hair was slightly disheveled. I looked tired. Can't let Thomas see me like this, I thought. I pulled out my lipstick and quickly touched up. Today might be a special day. The thought made my steps lighter. I noticed several missed calls from Thomas. 10 of them since the morning. That's unusual. Maybe he needs to discuss something about work. Recently, his payments had been delayed, and I was using my card to cover more of his expenses. His financial records were becoming less transparent, but I decided not to think about that today. Today was special. I entered the building and swiped my security card. The luxurious lobby was as quiet as ever. Welcome home, Miss Carter. The concierge greeted me with a polite bow. It was the usual scene, but I sensed something different in his eyes, a hint of pity. Maybe it's just my imagination, I thought as I got into the elevator and pressed the button for the 25th floor. As I ascended, I checked my reflection in the mirror. Thomas will be happy. The elevator chimed, and the doors opened. I walked to our door and inserted my key. The key wouldn't turn. That's strange. Maybe I'm just tired. I tried again, but the key kept turning without unlocking. Panic started to rise. My hands trembled. I took a deep breath to calm myself and called Grace. Grace, the key isn't working. Did something happen? Nothing's changed. Oh, wait, we just changed the lock. Changed the lock? What do you mean? It means parasites, like you need to get out of this house, leech. My knees went weak, and I leaned against the wall. Parasite. Leech. Those words pierced my heart. I had been paying for the apartment, utilities, groceries, all of it, even covering Thomas's business expenses with my card. Last month's bills alone exceeded $10,000. So this was all planned. All the unease I'd felt now connected. Thomas's anxious behavior, Grace's cold stares, the inconsistencies in his business dealings. It was all leading up to this moment. I looked at my phone, at the missed calls from Thomas. Now I understood why he'd been calling. He knew. He chose to betray me, following his mother's lead. The hallway security camera was probably recording my pathetic state. Having lost everything, there was no need to keep up appearances. You're right, Grace. As you wish. I hope you two will be happy together, I said, forcing a bright, nonchalant tone. Tears streamed down my cheeks. I wiped them with my sleeve, but they kept coming. All the emotions I'd held back burst forth. I got back into the elevator and descended to the lobby. The concierge looked at me with concern. Miss Carter, is everything all right? Perhaps he knew my situation. Maybe he'd seen the locksmiths changing the locks. I gave a slight nod and stepped outside. With nowhere else to go, I found myself heading toward my office. I called my supervisor. Can I talk to you, Mr. Owens? Despite the late hour, he answered immediately. Just hearing his voice made me break down in tears. Amanda, what's wrong? Mr. Owen, I was so foolish. I knew, but I ignored it all. Knew what? Thomas's company isn't making any money. He's been using my card to pay for everything. I didn't want to admit it, but the expenses kept piling up. Through sobs, I explained everything. The dubious financial records, the extravagant spending, and Grace's changing attitude. When Thomas said he wanted to start his own business, I wanted to support him. He had grown up in a single-parent household, and I wanted him to succeed. But now, my supervisor listened silently. The office lights cast a soft glow in the quiet space. Despite the late hour, he was there for me. This is financial abuse, Amanda. You're not at fault. Don't worry, he said, trying to comfort me. Then he made an unexpected proposal. Actually, the owner of your apartment is an old friend of mine from college. He mentioned the penthouse is available. Why don't you move there tonight? Yes, we can handle the paperwork now. We'll have movers get your belongings tomorrow. Everything will be all right. I thought for a moment and decided to accept his help. I didn't want to return to that apartment. That night, I stayed in the company's guest room. I couldn't sleep. At dawn, I headed to the bank. I'd like to cancel the automatic transfers from my account, I told the clerk. I stopped all transfers to Thomas's account and reduced the credit limit on my cards. Before the sun rose, I severed all financial ties. In early November, one afternoon, Grace received an eviction notice from the apartment owner. What is this? She asked, her voice trembling. My son has been paying. Miss Carter has been paying the rent for the past 3 months. Could you confirm the name on the receipts? The owner interrupted. That can't be. Thomas stammered. Silently, I produced my card statements. All payments for the past 3 months have been made using my card. Rent, utilities, maintenance fees, even Thomas's business expenses. The monthly rent is $5,000 with a $1,500 maintenance fee, all paid under Miss Amanda Carter. Also, we've obtained your son's company records and tax returns. Last year's revenue was only $112,000. After expenses, his income was $6,000, less than $500 a month. Grace's face turned pale upon learning her son earned only $500 a month. The luxury apartment, with monthly expenses exceeding $7,000, was being funded entirely by me. No. Thomas, why? Grace whispered. Thomas, called in by the owner, confessed everything. He admitted that all the luxury car payments, brand name purchases, and business expenses were paid using my card. Unpaid debts had piled up with no means of repayment. Amanda, what should I do? The loans, the bills, I need your help, please, Thomas pleaded. The sincere expression he once had was gone. Now, he was filled with desperation and fear. Driven by the desire to meet his mother's expectations, he had pretended to be more successful than he was. Grace's pride shattered upon learning her son's true situation. "Let's get a divorce," I said calmly but firmly. "Amanda, you're all I have. Give me another chance." "I'll make it right this time," he begged, dropping to his knees. The man I once loved was nowhere to be found. "I'm just a parasite, right? A leech? Isn't that what you said? Enough. You two be happy together," I said, throwing Grace's own words back at them. "Your belongings have already been moved," the apartment owner, who had been silently observing, informed me. My supervisor and the owner had arranged for movers to collect all my personal items. On the dining table, there was a new set of keys. My clothes, cosmetics, work tools, all my belongings, including the luxury items Thomas needed to maintain his facade as a top executive, had been moved to a new place. The view from the penthouse was exceptional. As we rode the elevator to the top floor, the owner smiled. The vista was vast and open. I hadn't realized the sky was so close. "This is my new home," I thought, breathing in a sense of exhilaration. I began to prepare for my new life. The morning light streaming through the large windows illuminated a fresh start. "I'll redo all my project materials here. The views from up here encourage me," I resolved. "Let them face the consequences of calling me a parasite. I'll make sure they feel the weight of trampling on my dignity." Depending solely on my money, Thomas had only one last gift from me, to settle everything. From this day forward, my new life begins. Starting tomorrow, I'll launch the new project. I'll ensure the $5 million campaign is a success. Standing by the window, I watched the sunset. The red hues seemed to light the path to my future. "Goodbye, Thomas. We'll never meet again," I whispered softly, my voice no longer trembling. As I stood in the twilight, the penthouse view that usually soothed me now seemed distorted. A chill ran down my spine. Then I noticed a flyer posted in the elevator hall. Suppressing my shaking hands, I read it. In bold red letters under the fluorescent light, it proclaimed, "Warning, to the adulterous wife. In this building lives an unfaithful wife who meets with a man during the day. Beware, wives, so your husbands aren't targeted." Attached was a video of me and my supervisor when he had visited to deliver work documents. The image was deliberately cropped to suggest impropriety. Residents passing by gave me icy stares. In the elevator, no one met my gaze. Mothers pulled their children closer upon seeing me. "Good morning," I greeted a neighbor, but she turned away without a word. "This isn't true," I whispered. My words echoed futilely in the cold air. For someone like me, who devoted herself to work, accusations of infidelity were unbearable. My fingernails dug into my palms. My pillow was soaked with tears each night. Emails from clients dwindled. "Miss Carter, due to internal circumstances," began the apologetic messages. Social media was flooded with malicious comments. "Did you hear about that woman at that company? I can't believe she looked so innocent." Late-night emails announcing canceled contracts piled up. My phone rang incessantly with calls from unknown numbers. When I answered, there was silence or insults. My private number had been leaked. Retrieving mail from the mailbox, I found red envelopes with messages like "Get out" and "Homewrecker" written in familiar handwriting. I stared at them, my hands trembling. "I'm sorry, Amanda. I never imagined my photo would be used like this." Hearing the remorse in my supervisor's voice only tightened the knot in my chest. "Mr. Owen, I'm sorry for dragging your family into this. You have nothing to apologize for." "Don't worry about it," he replied. On a chilly October night, an emergency residents meeting was called. Over 100 residents gathered, the atmosphere heavy and accusatory. As I sat by the window, all eyes were on me. "We've received complaints regarding Miss Carter," the leader began with a tone of irritation. I was being labeled as someone tarnishing the reputation of the luxury apartment. No chance to defend myself was given. Grace stood up, her demeanor that of a perfect victim, skillfully manipulating the crowd. "She ruined my son's life. All she did was sit at the computer, neglecting her duties as a wife, she exclaimed, tears streaming down her face in a calculated performance. The room was silent. Next to her, Thomas wore a conflicted expression. I knew that look all too well. That's true. My wife betrayed our trust. His trembling voice elicited sympathy from the crowd. Please, take a look at the evidence. At the perfect moment, the owner projected a video onto a large screen. Gasps filled the room as footage showed two figures posting flyers in the hallway at night. Even from behind, it was clear it was Thomas and Grace. Is that? The room buzzed with shock. Thomas's face turned pale. The dates on the footage changed, showing 7 consecutive nights of their actions. Then, scenes of Grace repeatedly pressing my doorbell, without response, played on the screen. The room was filled with murmurs. The next footage was even more damning. It showed Thomas on dates with a young woman at upscale restaurants. Just a little longer. You promised you'd get Amanda's money soon. I know. Trust me, Thomas replied as he nodded gently. He showered her with luxury gifts, Chanel, Gucci, Cartier. At the register, he used a card bearing my name. Only the best for you. Oh, you're amazing, Thomas, she squealed, hugging him. Disappointment and disgust spread through the audience. Financial records were displayed, revealing the full extent of the fraud. Total rent payments of $180,000 over 3 years, misuse of company funds amounting to $280,000 in luxury goods, monthly dining expenses averaging $112,000, and loans totaling $800,000, including from loan sharks, all paid using my cards and accounts. The room fell into heavy silence. How could someone earning $500 a month afford such extravagance? Someone whispered. Thomas began to stammer. No, this isn't what it looks like. There are reasons. Mom, say something. Grace was speechless. We've already submitted all data to the police and tax authorities, the owner announced. Grace's face drained of color. The final blow was footage from the elevator, showing Thomas and Grace's conversation. Just a bit more, Mom. Soon we'll have all of Amanda's income. We'll cover the debts, Thomas said. Foolish boy. She was just a stepping stone from the start. She's only there for your benefit, Grace replied. The undeniable evidence left the room in an uproar. Grace collapsed into a chair, her previous confidence shattered. The atmosphere shifted. Residents who had condemned me now offered apologies. Miss Carter, we're so sorry. We should never have doubted you, one said. I could only nod quietly at each apology. From that day, Thomas's company crumbled. Major clients terminated contracts, and his reputation was ruined. Creditors demanded immediate repayment. The media reported on the luxury condo fraud, though the reality was distorted in sensational headlines. My phone showed an increasing number of missed calls from Grace. Even after blocking her number, she found ways to contact me. Amanda, please, just once. Thomas was a good boy who listened to me. Her voice, now devoid of its former venom, quivered with desperation. I felt a complex mix of emotions, but deleted the messages without a word. The liquidation of Thomas's company progressed. Tax investigations revealed the full extent of the financial misconduct, fake invoices, hidden slush funds, and every deceit uncovered. Statements from Thomas's mistresses added to the pile. Thomas promised to take care of me. He bragged about using his wife's money. He bought me luxury cars and bags with her cards. And I'm not the only one woman said, her voice trembling. Hearing their accounts, I even began to pity them. They, too, were victims of Thomas's greed. The trap he had set to exploit me was becoming clearer. Amanda, I have nothing left. You're the only one I can rely on. Please help me like before, his messages read, shifting from arrogance to pitiful pleas. I left them on read and blocked him. There was no going back. A month later, another residents' meeting was held, this time to apologize to me. The room was filled with remorse. Miss Carter, we deeply regret our actions. We are truly sorry for the baseless accusations, one resident said. Residents bowed deeply, their attitudes completely changed. In the elevator, They greeted me with respect. Mothers who once shielded their children now offered kind words. I responded politely, but remained detached. Standing at the penthouse window, I looked out over the city. The nightscape was as beautiful as ever, but it looked different to me now. My phone rang, breaking the silence. "Amanda, we've secured a new project, a brand strategy for a major corporation," Mr. Owen said, his voice bringing a smile to my face. "That's great news, Mr. Owen." "I've already prepared the proposal," I replied. "I knew I could count on you," he said warmly. This was my true calling, something no one could take from me. Grace, Thomas, the mistresses, they were all part of a distant past. Their schemes to bring me down had ultimately led to their own downfall. But this wasn't about revenge. The truth had simply come to light. Justice wasn't served by someone. It was the truth being acknowledged. My reflection in the window looked stronger than before. The parasite they had called me had fought back. Now my real life was beginning. This wasn't the end, but a new start. The city's lights below seemed to bless my future. Months later, as I reviewed materials for a new client, I recalled the events of 6 months ago. "It's so peaceful," I whispered to myself, the words echoing in the spacious living room. No longer did I need to tiptoe around someone's mood or seek approval. This space was mine alone. The divorce proceedings had been surprisingly smooth. There was no point in seeking alimony from a debt-ridden Thomas. I had ensured I wasn't saddled with his company's debts. A message popped up on my phone. "Are you doing okay?" I smiled at it and replied with a cheerful emoji. Over these months, I had truly found myself. He'd been a pillar of support, even volunteering evidence to clear my name. "Miss Carter, it's tea time," the intercom buzzed with the owner's gentle voice. It was time for our weekend tea gathering. Once, this time had been filled with tension with Grace. Now it felt like a distant memory. Opening the door, I saw several residents standing behind the owner. Those who once gave me cold stares now welcomed me warmly. "Please come in." In the living room, residents shared homemade treats and pleasant conversation filled the air. The setting sun painted the city with soft colors. I'd heard rumors that Thomas was on the run from creditors, abandoned by his mistresses. Having lost his home, his whereabouts were uncertain. Grace, devastated by her son's lies and betrayal, was reportedly moving between relatives' homes. I felt no anger or hatred anymore. Those experiences, though painful, had made me stronger. They helped me realize my true worth. Cheers. Raising my glass, I joined in. This view, this space, these relationships, they were all part of my new life. "Miss Carter, we look forward to many more moments together," one resident said warmly. I nodded deeply. I was no longer someone to be leeched off or controlled. Here, I could live as myself. As the city lights began to sparkle, I returned to my desk and opened the proposal for my new project. "I'll keep moving forward with confidence. This is the path I've chosen," I thought. Like the view from the 50th floor, my life will shine even brighter.